It's December 2018. There's a new tube map out. There's a new night tube map out as well. And they've done something quite revolutionary. Or is it? Let's discuss. So, for the purposes of this video, I shall be referring to the pocket tube map for what I'm looking at here. But it's worth pointing out, and this is something that the designers have to do when they make a new tube map at TfL, is that the pocket tube map is actually different from the poster that appears on, say, at tube station platforms and the PDF. So what you get here isn't the PDF. I shall be showing examples here from the PDF, which is slightly different from the tube map. But what they've done is something which a lot of people have been asking for a long time. Two things mainly. First of all, this appeared many years ago. This was not designed by me. This was a walking map of the tube, and it showed you which stations were close enough together to be able to walk in between. A second thing which I did is that for many years, going back at least 6, 7, 8 years, I've always been personally frustrated by the fact that a connector blob was ubiquitously used no matter what the type of connection was. Now, in my mind, there are two types of connections. There are those where you remain within the gate line. So, for example, a connector blob appears at Rayner's Lane because if you're changing from the Piccadilly to the Metropolitan line, you get a connector blob there and you don't leave the station. And when I say you don't leave the station, you don't pass through the gate line. However, a connector blob with a bar also existed at, say, Shepherd's Bush. Even though they're two separate stations, if you're changing from the central line to the overground at Shepherd's Bush, you leave one gate line, cross the road, and then enter another. And connection blobs with bars were also used on the map to show you connections between stations where you didn't exit a gate line. So many years ago, I devised a map that used the standard connector blob where you stayed within the station, didn't exit through a gate line, and then I used, and I'll try and show an example here, I then did a thin black line to show you where a connection was possible between two stations, but you had to go through a gate line. Shepherd's Bush would be one of those examples. TfL, with the official tube map in December 2018, which, by the way, doesn't have Crossley's perp rail, should have done, have finally done this. And straight away, spoiler, I like it. I really like it. I think it's really great, with a couple of exceptions, which I'll get to. I think they've done a great job. They've basically added in a dotted line to show you where you actually or can walk between two stations. And in the key on their map, it actually says under a 10-minute walk between stations. So I'm just going to whiz round some of the examples. A great example, for example, Bow Church to Bow Road used to be standard connector blob with a bar in between. Now they put a dotted line because it correctly shows that you actually have to walk, and I like it because it is a walk out of a gate line along the street and down to a different station. They've done the same at Walthamstow, at Queen's Road. They've correctly shown the dotted line through to the Overground and Victoria line at Walthamstow Central, so I like that. At Seven Sisters, finally TfL, you've acknowledged that Seven Sisters and South Tottenham are close enough together to be walkable, because they put Archway to Upper Holloway on the map a year ago, and I think that's a bigger distance than South Tottenham to Seven Sisters. They've changed the design of the map and they finally acknowledged that that is a connection, and they've put in the dotted line to show that you can walk between the two. Archway to Upper Holloway, which was a standard connector bar, has now changed to a dotted line. That is great. Camden Road to Camden Town is interesting because Camden Town, a very congested station on the Northern Line, the station is in bad need of a capacity upgrade. And there was a conspiracy that they never liked to admit that Camden Road was near Camden Town to try and discourage people from using it. But they've put the dotted line in between the two Camdens. That's great. An amazing example of how the pocket map differs from the poster or PDF map is that on the larger size PDF map, and the example is shown here, John, you've put a bend in the Metropolitan line, and people were losing their on Twitter because it was like, there's a bend in the Metropolitan line, but interestingly not on the pocket map. That bend is there on the larger size map to show around the West Hampstead and Finchley Road areas the dotted walking lines that are now possible. And a dotted line between South Hampstead and Swiss Cottage as well, which looks great. Kenton to Northwick Park is there. That is great. That is a classic Tube Challengers change. I can run that in like about 2.5 minutes. Another connection though nearby which is not shown is West Ruislip on the Central Line to Ickenham. Now I can run that in 6 minutes, so maybe, yeah, it would take about 11 or 12 minutes to walk, which doesn't fall under the 10 minutes. But it's still worth knowing that West Ruislip to Ickenham which I'm not sure if it's an OSI or not. I'll put a link to OSIs below. Isn't on the map. What I definitely would have considered, TFL, if you're watching, Hanger Lane to Park Royal. You can definitely walk that between 10 minutes. And maybe also North Ealing to West Acton. I'm pretty sure you can walk North Ealing to West Acton in under 10 minutes, but yet not on the map. Shepherd's Bush gets it at last. It gets a proper dotted line connection, as does Hammersmith, which is hilarious because like Shepherd's Bush, you can go from gate line to gate line in under 60 seconds. Controversially, down on the trams, they've put the connecting walking line in between South Wimbledon and Morden Road tram stop, even though if you look, and you can just look on Google Maps, or we tried it in real life, Merton Park is actually physically nearer to South Wimbledon than Morden Road. Morden Road is actually perfectly equidistant between South Wimbledon and Morden, so you could equally put a dotted line from Morden Road down to Morden. The dotted line appears at Clapham High Street. That is great. The dotted line appears at West Croydon between the Overground and the tram. Amusingly, back in the May timetable change, Overground trains used to arrive at platform 4 at West Croydon. They then switched them, except on Sundays, to be platform 1, and it's now a 3-minute walk around. Before, if you're in the rear carriage, you could go out the rear entrance at West Croydon. You could change from gate line to tram stop in like 20 seconds, no more. What it should point out, the thing that I don't like, well, it's worth pointing out that straight away that most of the stations within the Circle Line, Zone 1-ish, are probably close enough together to be walkable. So it's interesting to note, correct design decision, I think, not to put dotted lines into the Zone 1 Circle Line area, because that would look ridiculous. But Paddington Station falls outside of the Circle Line, and it has always frustrated me, and Paddington is a really complicated station, but they are two separate stations. So the Circle and Hammersmith and City Line station, completely separate and quite a lengthy walk, about 5 minutes I would say, to the gate line for the Bakerloo District and Circle Line. And if it was up to me, TFL, again, if you're watching, put a little kink, put a curve. If you're prepared to put a kink in the Met, right, at Finchley, put a kink in the Bakerloo so that it dips down, so you can correctly show the Bakerloo on the south side of Paddington, linking up with the district, and then a dotted line through to the separate gate line and the separate station at Hammersmith and City and the Circle Line. That is the one thing that I would have done. But apart from that, it's really good. It's easily, and I mean that, it's the best tube map there's been for a while. There is, of course, the controversy that the pocket map is just too small in size generally, and I do think that TFL, especially when the purple line palms come through, they're going to need a larger format, a larger footprint to squeeze all this in. But the walking connections generally, I think they've pretty much got right, and it's really good. Just notice the Dangleway, the cable car there, has got proper dotted walking connections, so that's good to see. Oh, Tower Hill as well. There's loads. Have a look. I'll put links in the description to the downloadable PDF on the TFL website, or you can pick it up. You can pick up, hang on, I've lost my night tube map. You can pick up the regular tube map or the night tube map. For those saying, this is ugly, this is weird, it is by far the strangest art on the underground tube map there's been for a while. It makes more sense, though, when you realise that it's part of a wider artistic installation by Art on the Underground, and these lips are actually available to see on the outside of a tube station. I will leave you with a closing shot of where you can see these lips. These lips. I was going so well. These lips in real life. See ya.